Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is 6:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And my name is Anna Withers. I'm the Farmer and Resource Development Manager for Springfield Community Gardens. And we are a nonprofit based in Springfield, Missouri, whose vision is a community where everyone has access to healthy local food. Right now, we have 16 community gardens and 3 farm incubator sites in Springfield. So lots of opportunities to get involved, and we love supporting growers of all types. This workshop on work-life balance in farming is generously supported by the 2501 program from the USDA Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement. Our speaker tonight is Jessica Crocker of Ozarks Hippie Goat Farm, and I will let her introduce herself further in a moment. But just some housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions throughout the night, please feel free to ask as we go. This can be very informal, and it's a great topic to actually share your experiences and ask Jessica about hers, and just feel free to make this an open forum. If you would, feel free to use the chat, but if you have a specific question, do use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, because that will help me keep track of the questions that we've answered and have not answered. And we'll be able to stop periodically to ask Jessica to answer them. So once you leave the workshop, it's really important to Springfield Community Gardens. If you have a moment, please go ahead and take our post-workshop survey. That survey is used in our reporting to the USDA, and it also helps us provide meaningful workshops for you in the future. So tell us what you thought. Let us know how we're doing. We'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to refer to this workshop later, it will be available on SCG's Agriculture Workshop playlist on our YouTube channel. And I will be sure to put the link to our channel as well as our website, social media, all the important links for you to look us up further in the chat in just a moment. So without further ado, we're so excited to have Jessica Crocker here tonight. This is a really important topic because a lot of the farmers we work with do it part-time or are just starting farming, and they want to eventually expand to full-time, but they find that sometimes it takes a really long time to get there. So I hope you enjoy tonight's topic, and I will hand it off to Jessica.
Thank you so much. Well, good evening, everyone. Again, we're so happy to have you on the call, and we will be diving through a lot of topics that also affect work-life balance. So that's why we have some things that you may not think are related, but everything tends to affect how we work and how we balance our responsibilities. So one thing we want to know is just a little bit more about the group on the call. And Anna has a survey that she's going to send out to you that is going to rate what type of farmer are you? Are you full-time, part-time, thinking about going full-time or part-time in the future? And then also just kind of tell us, where are you at with your stress level, with your responsibilities? Like, how do you feel about that? And we just want to kind of see where our group stands. So I'll give you guys a few minutes and go ahead and answer those as honestly as you can, especially on the stress level. And then we'll be able to see where our results are.
Yeah, thank you so much. I did launch it, so if anyone cannot see it or if there's an issue, let me know. But oh, I see we are getting a couple responses right now. That's very good. Thank you so much.
Very good. So we've got a lot that have endeavors about going full-time.
And you know what? I think everyone's answered it, so I will go ahead and share those results.
Okay.
Can you see that, Jessica?
I can see everything except for the current stress level.
Okay.
That's the only one I don't see. So yeah, I see a lot. The 67% are thinking about full-time, and then 33% thinking about part-time.
Okay, weird. You might have to scroll down. I'm not sure what you're seeing,
Okay.
but we have 2 that answered, or well, 67% answered a medium level of stress. 33 answered a low level of stress.
Okay. Yes.
So, right. So that's great. No one came in at high. So that, I guess that might just be you and me. I don't know.
That's very good. Well, and part of our presentation is also to talk about how do we prevent ourselves going to the high, because it happens. There's times when we have stress levels that peak. And if we put some things in place proactively, which is, again, what we're going to discuss tonight, then hopefully we'll stay in the low range, because that's going to help us be more effective. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. And I wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself. And let's first cover the agenda, though. Just some of the things we're going to talk about is recognizing the need for balance. Maybe it's not something you've thought about. You just go through your day and you go through the work and you have some goals already set. But we really want to talk about how do you get there, again, with keeping your responsibilities and keeping your stress level in check and making sure that you take care of yourself. So one thing that I really want to dive into is just focus on safety and self-care, because it's important that we take time for ourselves and make sure through everything that we're doing, we are taking extra effort to make sure that we're getting our needs met so that we can take care of others, which is our farm, our animals, our plants, whatever we have in as a part of our farming. And then just networking and support. I want to talk about and ask questions about, some of the networking that we have out there, where you can learn from other people. You can see how other people have gone maybe from part-time to full-time, and what makes it easier. Some of the things that we come into challenges with is, how do we do it all? But we want to grow. How do we become more efficient so that way we can expand in the future? So, and then really just going into talking about resilience and resetting our expectations. If things don't always go the way we expect, not giving up, setting new goals, setting new plans, and maybe just moving our dates out. And then we'll have at the end plenty of time for questions and answers. But one thing I want to really emphasize is this is a call for us to learn from each other. I've got some stories that I can tell you from my experiences, but I also want to hear from you. And also, some things that maybe have helped you deal with stress, maybe some support that you've gotten through, starting up farming or being able to expand, or if it's something you haven't started yet and you're looking for resources. I want to be able to have open conversations. And Anna, I don't have my view of everyone that's on the call, so I may have to have you just help. Again, if somebody has a story that they want to share, that you can call on them.
Yeah, absolutely. If I see anyone, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. I believe actually, let me just see something. I think, yeah, I can actually also allow any of the participants to talk if someone does. So just let us know what works for you and we will make it happen.
Very good. So I wanted to just introduce you to our farm and tell you a little bit about our story. So we founded Ozarks Hippie Goat Farm about 3 years ago, and it's been a progress of growing and learning as we've gone along. A little bit about me is that I have been in the HR profession for quite a while. I was working for a major manufacturer for about 7 years as a senior HR manager. Very high stress job, just in the nature of it, not that it was a bad experience, but sometimes when you're in a high stress corporate situation, you're missing some satisfaction from having things that you can control. And certainly some of my stress relief was being outside, gardening, and then working with animals, which we had a lot of rescues at the time, cats and dogs, some through my employees that brought rescue animals to work, and I adopted them and took them home. But there's one time that it just really, there wasn't enough that we were able to do, and we were able to get some land in our area, about 6 acres. And at that point, we had the opportunity to actually do more. And so we ended up getting 2 goats and from 2 different families. One was actually getting out of farming. She was actually going into just concentrating on horses, and she was selling off her goats and downsizing. And so we kind of took advantage of that. and then got chickens. And that was kind of like our small start. And I can tell you, I didn't really know a whole lot when I first started. It was a lot of researching, goats in themselves are very different from other livestock. There's a lot of things you wouldn't expect that you have to know about their health and keeping up with them and breeding and all of that. So, I always tell everyone when they ask, what's it like having a goat farm? And I said, well, all those cute videos that you watch, online where you've got the little baby goats jumping around and it just makes you smile. And I'm like, I have that every day. So even though it's a lot of work, and there's been times that it has been very stressful because they need you. You can't just take a day off. You've got to make sure you're there for them. It's been wonderful. It's been something that has given my family a lot of satisfaction. And then also just being able to have some sustainability within our family has been great. So we don't milk full time, obviously, because I work full time still. I am in HR and I'm actually working for city utilities. So I'm full time there. I'm actually finishing out my bachelor's degree this year. I can tell everyone it's never too late to start again. And that's kind of what I decided to do for my career is I've got to finish my degree. I'm quite a bit older to be doing that, but it's just something that was a goal of mine. So in between, school and the farm and caring for my family, and my kids are in softball and lots of different activities, it does take some concentration on how do I balance all this. And a lot of the times it's juggling. One thing that I want to mention is there's times when, you're going to spend a lot of time with your farm, and maybe there's some sacrifices on the family end. And then sometimes there's going to be times where, you shift and family has a lot going on and maybe, you're not giving quite as much attention to the farm aside from the basics, of feeding and health maintenance. But it's not, when we talk about work-life balance, there's never such a thing where it's always perfect. There's always a little give and take, but in the end, we want to make sure that there's no sacrifices on either end. And some of that is a mental focus as well. And then on the side, I also do some products, some natural health skincare products that we started, not with goat's milk. And I can tell you why. A lot of people ask about that because we do lotions and facial creams and things that just don't have any preservatives at all. There's no water, there's no type of preservatives. And so we can't put the goat's milk in there because it can cause some bacteria growth. So that's something we do on the side. And to be honest, we kind of started some of the natural skincare. We do soap occasionally, but again, with balancing everything, there's some things that we've had to put on hold. I don't make a lot of soap with the goat's milk because it is time consuming. And that's something that's a future goal. I'm going to expand some products, but that's part of just, being able to pace yourself. And that's something we'll talk about as well. So yeah, we do some milking when we have our kidding season. And then of course we've got eggs from the chickens and lots of produce that we get from our garden. And that's something we're looking to expand as well. We'd like to have a larger greenhouse and, really start being able to be a little more sustainable. And I can tell you, for everyone on the call, congratulations for really putting the effort out to do some things on your own. I know we can all feel the pressure from the inflation and going to the grocery store every week. You see that prices are going up, and I think we've seen a lot from the last couple of years with COVID and supply chain issues. It's scary. It's scary when you go to the store, when we had times where there's nothing on the shelves. There's a lot of people that don't have the opportunity to provide anything for themselves, and so in a situation where you can do anything that is your own product and your own food source, it's just amazing. So I commend all of you guys for doing that. And certainly hope that a lot of you will focus on growth. So again, we'll talk about how do we get there. So again, go ahead.
I'll interrupt you real quick because we already have one question, and you've really actually already been covering it, but just a general question of what stresses do farmers tackle? And you just went over a lot. It's like you have got a family to think about. You've got the welfare of your animals to think about. You've got revenue to think about, and just how you want to proceed as a farm, using what kind of products or what have you. So I feel like we're going to really explain all the different things you can stress or worry about, but just letting you know, there is that overarching question of just what stresses do farmers tackle?
Absolutely. And that's a really good question, for if it's somebody that hasn't started yet, there's things that you don't even know is going to come. And preparing for that mentally, that there's going to be some days that are hard, there's going to be some days that you'll have some unexpected struggles, is kind of half the battle. You have to know not everything is going to go right. And I think sometimes we look at, I know I did, when I looked at people that started their own hobby farm and maybe they, had a few acres, and you look online and everything seems perfect. And you're like, gosh, that's great. They've got these animals and they're doing awesome. And you don't usually see people post online or talk about all the bad things. You don't have the view of, the animals that have, gotten sick and maybe didn't make it, or, like, I can tell you, I spent like 2 nights out in the barn trying to because we took on a little bit of water, because when it floods that bad, or there's storms with wind and tornadoes and limbs down and just damage that's done to your area, that's a struggle, because it takes extra time. It's not expected, and you just got to work through it. I was out there late just trying to make sure everything dried out, getting new supplies to, put down additional bedding on the floor, because we've got, of course, little babies, and they can't, if they're in really damp areas, it's not good for like, pests that can grow, or just can make them sick. So there's just things that come up that you have to be able to work through. And this is just one of our boys that we love very much. He's a handful. And one thing that we really enjoy, is, and again, we think about the positives a lot more than the negatives that could possibly come up, is just being able to have visitors out. And we also do mentoring. I'm going to mention that because at the end of the call, you're welcome to take our information down for our farm. We have a lot of new farmers that just have general questions, and I don't mind being that resource. And if you have further questions, certainly, that would be something I'd be willing to offer. So let's talk about just kind of where we're at with farming. There's a lot of farm operations that have been declining since the 1930s. Farming seen a decline from 7 million down to 2.6 million, totaling now about 1.3% of the employed population. And if you think about, all of the food that's needed and to be able to have available to sustain our nation, it's just not enough. And I can give you an example. I grew up on a farm. My grandparents were dairy farmers, and when they passed away, their farm was broken up, the cattle was sold, they had over 80 acres that's now going to be a subdivision. And we see that a lot. We see a lot of farmers, as the older generation goes away, there's not enough housing in a lot of areas, and all of that is being basically destroyed. And so the good thing is that a lot of, our group here on the call, and a lot of younger generations are looking at hobby farming to be able to start self-sustainability. And it's really, we talk about hobby farms, it's not just hobby. It's so much more than that. They got that phrase because they're smaller operations. That's more of an IRS guideline, as well as they consider it any operation that's usually under 50 acres. Well, if you have a 25-acre farm, to me, that's a lot of work. That's certainly bigger than what we have. And so just keep in mind, when we talk about hobby farms, that's just a coin phrase. It's no different than any other farming agriculture operation that's out there. It's just on a smaller scale. So today we have a lot of people that are really looking to get into it. And, again, the positive is we see a lot more community, tight-knit networking and farming that's going on that goes back to our roots. I can tell you, like, it is so satisfying to be able to have eggs and products. And I've traded before, just like they did back in the old days where people traded goods for, maybe somebody has vegetables and I have eggs, and we can make trades. And it's just so awesome to be able to do that. And, I think there's a lot of stock in learning together and being able to expand operations, because I just don't think we're going to see the large scale farming like it was. But you know what? If there's a ton of little ones and you're able to expand that in your community, then it's still great, and it's still teaching generations on the importance of farming and self-sustainability.
Hey, Jessica.
Yes.
Just to piggyback off of that, I think it's super interesting. So most of the farming operations across the globe are on less than 5 acres, which I think is super, super promising. And it makes farming that much more available to people, because we know how land can be such a barrier. And you're right, like those major operations are very expensive and life consuming to keep maintained and continue, after someone has retired. So I just want to point out, like, a lot of farms are small and they can be highly profitable being small. We even look to our partner, Curtis Millsap, out at Millsap Farms. And at one point, his family was farming on, I think, up to 7 acres, but they've dialed it back. And they have one of the most prolific farms in the area, and they farm on 2 acres. And Curtis will tell you, over time, they've just learned how to really maximize their land usage and make sure that all of their beds, there's a plan for them and no beds are sitting empty. So just wanted to add that.
That's very good.
And also,
go ahead.
I said you got a shout out. Someone was saying, again, just seeing profitable examples on 1/3 of an acre.
Yes, there are lots of resources.
Some of them are hobby farms, some of it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And even, 1/3 of an acre, you can do a lot with. There are a lot of books and resources that tells you exactly how you can make the use of that area. That's one thing that we have as our generation compared to in the past, is we have found ways to make things more efficient, to ensure that we can plant the right crops together and how to help the soil with animals, again, different things that we can do to help their health that maybe we didn't know about some of that in the past. So we all know, work-life balance can become a challenge. If you're taking care of animals that depend on you, and then you're tending to the land, again, that's an ongoing effort, because, once you start your crops and you've gone through a year, you're having to make sure that you test your soil, you're having to, tend to that to ensure the next crop is going to be good. And then again, you've got weather that's affecting that. I remember, this season's certainly been very rainy, which is a challenge. I remember one season that our garden didn't do well at all because it rained just nonstop. The weather was not conducive to our outside crops. We do have a smaller greenhouse, but it was tough. And I heard that from everyone. They just weren't able to get the crop that they were used to. And then if you're working at all, again, congratulations, because I can tell you, I know how that feels when you're trying to get home, take care of your animals, and again, kids, and making sure that you can kind of be everything to everyone. It can be tough, and there's just, like I said, sometimes there's not enough of you to go around. And that's when we have to slow down and maybe reset, find a different plan. So the one thing I want to really emphasize is having that balance is all about pre-planning. And again, I can tell you, I probably did not sit down and come up with a business plan because I didn't think I needed to. I brought home goats, I brought home chickens. I didn't have any spreadsheets. I didn't even think about budgeting. I just figured, I'm going to figure this out as I go along. And I wouldn't recommend that, because, there's been a lot of research on the older generations of farming. Many of them didn't succeed because they didn't run it like a business. They didn't have profit and loss statements. They didn't manage their expenses, along with, looking for opportunities for growth to be able to add to their income. And it's so important, if you're looking to either make money from your operation, or you just want to make sure that you can sustain it and not drain your funds from other employment, then it's just important to take the time to do the planning. So farming, of course, it comes with great reward. There's pride when you can feed your family with any amount of food that comes from your own work and your own, hands. And, one thing I think that is so invaluable is that children that are working with you they're really learning good work ethic. I can tell you that working on a farm has helped me have the work ethic that I have now. And when I was in manufacturing, when I hired individuals that had prior farm work, they had a different level of effort that they put in, and they were a lot more resilient because they're used to, again, having to work hard, having to work in all different circumstances and not being able to just walk away. Because when you farm, you can't just decide, I don't want to do this anymore and just leave your animals. It's definitely a commitment on all ends. So it really gives us the opportunity as a group to help our future generations, because if we stop farming and they're not learning, there's not going to be any food sources, other than our commercial options, where food is starting to come from a lab. And I think, I don't know how, people feel about that, but it is a little scary because, that's not the intent of, what our bodies need. We definitely need things that come from the ground and sources that are not full of chemicals. That's just a guarantee, because you see a lot more health issues with that. So whether you're small or large, or small operation looking to go large, it really does take that commitment. There's some things that we can talk about that, can help balance that. So, I think about my grandparents being full-time dairy farmers. They never took a day off. I can tell you, they worked from sun up to sundown. There's a lot of times I would walk in to go see them, and my grandpa, if we're done milking and it was 9 o'clock, he's usually asleep at the table because he'd watched a little bit of TV, ate a late dinner, and didn't even make it to bed. Like, he was just there. And I've seen him take naps during the day. But farming was their first priority. There was no balance. There wasn't taking a day off. There wasn't somebody to fill in, and everything else sacrificed. There was just that unspoken, agreement that everyone worked there, and there wasn't, any fun times where they would take off and go do anything else. So I think with our generations now, we are more willing to put our time and our balance as a priority, again, and we'll talk about safety and all of that, but, it's not the way it has to be. That was kind of the old age of farming. This is the new age to where we can make it work. There's no reason why we can't have a break. And to be honest, it's needed. There's no reason to work yourself to death. Unfortunately, my grandpa, because he had that culture of just work and never taken off, like, he had some pain and he didn't want to take any days off to go to the doctor. He didn't want to get checked out. He just worked through it. And unfortunately, he had a heart attack actually at the farm because he didn't stop. And so that is worst case scenario. I'd never want that to happen to anyone. So it is important to stop. It's not going to be a disservice to your operations to take care of yourself. One thing that I found that is just a necessity is having a backup plan. I have a couple of different people that can watch my farm should I need it. My son had heart surgery a year and a half ago, and I had to have somebody to take care of the farm because both my husband and myself were out of town. And that was, again, a stressful situation, very unexpected. And that's something where, we had to entrust our farm to somebody else. And so that is something I encourage you. If you don't even foresee that somebody would need to care for your farm, still have that as a backup. Have somebody that you can call in an emergency that can come over and help you, because you just never know what might happen. Have them trained. Some of our best farm help on call is a lot of our ag students that are either in high school, or if they're from MSU, and a lot of teachers can help connect you I found that that's our best resource. And sometimes you can get on the farm groups, either on Facebook or in the community, and see if there's somebody that does that. It's worth its weight in gold, and having that relief when you have somebody that can step in for you. I can tell you that we still take our vacations just like normal, and of course there's some cost with that, but it's certainly worth it. Any questions on that? Does anybody have a good backup, or have an organization that they've worked with where somebody comes in and helps with their farm?
I see someone in the chat just mentioning that it's really hard to find people. So I know that can be a major barrier. And in my experience, just speaking with farmers and working with them and building the network that we have here, I really haven't heard people talk about having a backup plan. For a lot of farmers, it's just them and their spouse and maybe one other worker. So, I mean, that brings up a great point. Like, if something happens and a spouse is indisposed, then you've just lost half your workforce. So
absolutely, it's important, and like I said, it is hard to find any workers right now. I mean, everybody's kind of in that boat. But my biggest suggestion is getting connected with any education organizations around your area. Even as a backup, like if you don't know your neighbors, get to know your neighbors. There's been times, we live on, like I said, a 6-acre plot, but we do have some neighbors that are on each side. One has horses and donkeys, and the other one is just, they have a barn and some dogs and cats. But I've gotten to know them, and there's one time I was traveling just to Branson for the day and had accidentally left the water on. It was one of those things where you're just like, I don't think I turned that off. And so I had their number and texted them, and they had run over and helped me out. But sometimes neighbors are willing to help out. And, I think sometimes we're afraid to ask. And that's something that I personally have had to get over, because I think, with the people on the call, if you're working and you're farming, you probably think you can do it all, because that's usually the personality that branches out to do more. And it takes a level of, just time management, and somebody that has I would say a lot of strength to be able to do all of that at once. And so sometimes, those personalities, which would be myself included, thinks they can do it all the time. And so I'm not one that takes a little bit more time to ask for help. And so that's something that I'm going to tell you is, don't wait until it gets bad and you have no other options. Try to build up your resources ahead of time. And then, so this is something that I want to talk about for your goals, especially for those that are wanting to expand, is what you plan for is most likely what you will accomplish. Write down your goals, put those somewhere in view where you can walk past it and see it, and make your path to where you can start to see some progress, because that's going to naturally give you more, it's going to give you more strength to be able to proceed. So create a schedule, because if you have strong habits and stick to your routine, that's going to help with your family, your work, and your home and farm life balance. So that's something, again, I wasn't good at first. We again started about 3 years ago in 2019. Over the summer was when we got our first livestock. And I didn't really have a routine, for example, of getting feed. I didn't have a routine of making sure, we had vaccinations and everything on a schedule. It was just when it was needed. It wasn't actually written down. It wasn't as organized. And that's something I learned, that you can't short yourself on. You've got to be able to make that a priority. And make sure when you're looking at your schedule time for your family and for your friends and for relaxation, because your farm can consume all the time that you give it. And that's something, again, I've not done well with at first, because there is always something to be done when you have livestock and you have plants and you've got a garden and you've got, all of the land maybe that needs to be worked. And if you are expanding, if you need to do fencing, if there, I mean, you could literally expand your time to nothing but working on the farm. And it's not healthy long-term, it's just not sustainable. So make sure that you are giving yourself time away from it. You know, create a schedule that help you keep on track without getting too overwhelmed. And then save yourself the stress, you know, plan ahead. And this is just probably my soapbox, is that farm stores are never open at convenient times. I always tend to need things or emergency supplies when it's not between 8 and 5. And so we have learned to stock up, keep an emergency supply of everything. And I think now we can see how that's a lot more important, because some of the things aren't available like they used to be. And saving some time on your supply needs, try to buy in bulk or budget to where you can buy more than you need, so you're not making so many trips in and out for things that you might need for essentials for your animals. And then plan for the seasons ahead of time. This is something that we can all end up spending more on, is if we know a certain season is going to run higher for hay and supplies, it's better for us to buy it on the off seasons and stock up. If you've got an area to store anything, by all means do that. Some of my suggestions to save cost are looking at not just buying them from the store. You know, can you get hay from, you know, other areas where it's cheaper? Maybe you have to rent a trailer to get things from another area, but all in all, by the time you pay your gas and by the time you get it in bulk, you're saving quite a bit over a year. Those are things that we've had to look at to just maximize our cost, or minimize our cost, but maximize our overall net revenue for the year. But we wouldn't know that unless we were sitting down and really looking at the numbers. And that's something that I would really emphasize as a priority. And then order online when you can. You would be surprised what Amazon carries now. You know, I'd like to know if anybody has used Amazon for different supplies. They carry a lot more farm items than they used to be. I enjoy the 2-day shipping, because there's been times I've ordered wormer, I've ordered different types of like farm related items that will help with like buckets. I've ordered stuff for our chickens online, and then always have a vet number on hand. But Anna, has anybody given feedback on if they've used a lot of online ordering?
No, but we have a question about whether you've ever grown your own feed for your animals.
So we have most of the time, oh, go ahead. Most of the time we allow our chickens to free range, which we've got enough land to where we section off our property to where we can let some of our fields rest. We've got plenty that's growing, so that way, you know, our goats, we don't really feed grain through the summertime. Just when they're actually pregnant or have just kidded, we'll give them some grain that's mixed to help with protein needs and extra calories. But we try as much as possible to utilize what we have. The chickens aren't as hard. With the goats, you know, they're a little picky on certain things. Most of the time we have enough in the field where we don't have to feed grain much, except for in the wintertime. And then we've gone to just big hay bales that we keep out. And that's really cut our feed costs, because, you know, to be honest, like grain is not the best for livestock if you can keep from it, simply because with goats, with their ruminant, it's really hard on them if they eat too much. We mix ours so that way we've got some sunflower seeds, we've got oats, and alfalfa, so they've got a little bit better mix.
Leave it to the goats to be picky.
They are. But yeah, the free range chickens, I mean, they eat all day long, and they've got plenty of land. And so that really helps, because they're picking out bugs. I mean, they're doing me a favor by making sure they're getting everything around. And then we talked about planning for emergencies. Make sure you always have a vet number on hand. Of course, the time that we did have my son's surgery, one of my goats was going down. I'm not sure they don't really know if he had an excess like worm load, because the weather was really bad during that time. It was like really rainy for a couple of weeks, or if it was like some type of infection. But we had to have a goat clinic visit where they came out, and it was very costly, but I had that number prepared so that way somebody could come out and treat him, and certainly saved him, because he was not doing well at all. And so again, that was some added stress, because I couldn't do anything about it, but we had somebody that could step in. So we talked about just operating your farm like a business. When you're financially struggling, that is probably one of the biggest stressors, other than just health issues. Budgeting really helps to make sure you see where your output is and what's coming in for income. We don't really have some slides in here talking about ways to maximize your profit on your farm, but there's a lot of great books on that, as well as just in Springfield and the surrounding areas. We are such a supportive farming community, I feel, because there's lots of farmers markets where you can join, and if you have certain products, you can bring those out there. Or if you need people to know about your farming business, if you have livestock, I mean, you can certainly connect with those groups. And there's just a lot of avenues to be able to showcase your farm. And so keeping good records helps you manage profits. It helps at the end of the year for tax purposes, of course. And it helps with health management. So we started using spreadsheets to really keep track of all of our breeding schedules, our vaccination schedules, and then also just our yearly checks and things, to put all of those in there to make sure we know what's coming. And then some resources, there's a lot of apps now that are pretty amazing that help with our expense management. There's an expense manager app that I've used a couple of times. I've gone back to more of a spreadsheet on my computer, but I used to use that, where if I was out, I could log in my expenses, take pictures of receipts. And then there's also FarmBiz, farm management software, QuickBooks. I know a lot of people use that. And then if you're needing any type of like invoicing for customers, there's a lot of great free apps. The one that I'm using right now is Wave, and it's completely free. You can connect your bank account, and then you can invoice, like if you're selling an animal or products, you can send that, and even partial payments can be accepted to you. So that's a really good one. Does anybody have any suggestions on any apps that they've used that they enjoy, or any way that they've stayed organized with the farm? Feel free just to put it in the chat if you have any suggestions.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know people really are all over the board with like pen and paper or Excel or
and that's okay. Like you can write it down too.
Books or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely about finding what works for you and what you're actually going to use, because I do find a lot of farmers like cooking the books is not their favorite thing.
Yeah. And then one thing that I'm going to add that I saw several farmers doing is just putting a wipe off board in your barn. I mean, that's probably as simple as it gets, but it's nice to be able to put down notes, and when, again, vaccinations are coming up, or if you need supplies, just kind of jotting that down. And that's a super easy way just to stay up on top of everything. Okay, so I just want to, really talk about the reality that you're going to have days when you get tired. I see a lot of you guys have low stress, which is awesome. But there's going to be times where you feel like you might be sacrificing some of your priorities for your farm. If you have somebody in the family that's sick, and then you've got sick animals, it can be hard to try to give yourself to everyone and make sure that everyone's okay. So one of the stories that I can share to you that was difficult this year is we went almost 3 years without losing an animal, which is almost unheard of, with all of our births that we had. And we had one obviously that was close that we had to have the visit on, but we, through everything, we're able to keep everyone healthy. Well, this year was tough because I felt personally responsible for having some loss. It was one night, we had a lot of our does that had kidded, and everything went great, but there was one that, she was about 2 days from kidding, and she started, having signs of labor. So we put her in her kidding pen, and I had actually reports due for school that same week. Well, it was the day before she was supposed to be due that she was still having some signs of early labor, but nothing that was too indicative that she was going early. And so, I went out to the barn late, checked on her. She seemed pretty okay. I was going to come in another hour and check on her. I'd gone back to finish some work on my paper, then came back, and she had already had 4 kids, and only one of them made it. And so, of course, I felt very at fault for not staying out there and not being able to be there to help with the delivery. And that was the first time we had quads at our farm. So it was kind of a double, concern that, I'd not been there. Maybe they all would have lived. And so that was really difficult. And that's something that, my husband was a little bit more supportive, that you can't focus on your losses, which is very true, because it's going to happen. I mean, any animal at any point can have a bad delivery. You can lose one because of sickness, and you have to just move on, because there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do is do better in the future. We've got barn cameras, there's some things that we put in place because of the situation we're in to make sure that, we can watch a little bit more carefully on our deliveries. So again, I'm going to go back to a broken record of make sure you take care of yourself, because it's a lot easier to deal with challenges like that when you just don't feel like you're drained to the point that you can't even, figure out the next step or have that resilience. So this is another one of my soapboxes. I think that comes from, having kids and being in the human resources field, where I do want to take care of everyone. Self-care is important. It's important that you eat correctly. You're working hard. If you do have a farm and a full-time job or part-time job, you need more energy. Your body needs proper fuel to supply the energy and the mental focus that you need. And I see a lot of people, again, I've done it myself, where, you're running from your job to take care of animals, to take care of kids. And sometimes you don't eat. Sometimes you skip meals, and you just go on to the next thing because, you've got only a certain amount of time. And it's important to make sure that you're not doing that, because all that's going to do is slow you down. And it may not be an instant effect, but over a week of time of doing that, you're going to be drained and tired, irritable, not being able to focus on what you need to. And really, we've got another slide on this too, but taking the time to work safely, because if you hurt yourself in any aspect while you're farming or doing, any part of your jobs, it's going to slow you down. It's going to cause even more struggle, because it's hard to work through when you're hurting, or you have to go to the doctor, or you have to stop because you sprung your ankle. Unfortunately, I've been in that situation where I wasn't watching, where I was walking and tripped in the field in a hole, and I can tell you that definitely slowed me down. And then ask for help. Again, I'm going to say this, it's important to make sure that you have somebody that can step in and be your support. It's not even just about help to cover your farm when you're on vacation, but it's just for somebody that you can reach out to if you just need somebody to give you some support, if you need somebody to give you some advice. And then give yourself a break. Like I said, you're working hard, you're giving a lot of yourself. And it's important that you are able to not only take a physical break, but give yourself a break as far as you're doing the best that you can, and that's really all that you can do. Safety in farming is something I just want to hit on a little bit, because again, back in the day when my grandparents were farming, safety wasn't a focus. You just did your job, you took care of the animals, you milked, and there wasn't anything extra that you did to focus on the work at hand. You did whatever was required. But nothing's more important than safety. Farming is one of the industries that has the highest risk of injury. A lot of that is from farm equipment, but also just from the tools that you use, animals. Slips, trips, and falls are one of the top injuries across all industries, and those are completely preventable. So just don't get in a hurry. You know, that's easier said than done, but watch where you're walking. Make sure that you have personal protection for this. And what that means is just, you know, don't go out in your flip-flops. Make sure that you have the proper footwear, that you've got, you know, gloves as you're trimming hooves, for example, or if you're working out in the garden, make sure that you, you know, are protected from, you know, possible bee stings and things that could be an issue as you're working outside. And stay hydrated. You know, stretch and stay hydrated is important because most aspects of farming are physical, and it doesn't matter what condition you're in. It's important to make sure that you are ready for the job. You know, there's a lot of lifting and moving and bending, whether you're gardening or you're taking care of animals. And it's important that you're not twisting and that you're bending with your knees as you're lifting things, because over time, it certainly can take havoc on your body. And with farming, some of the top injuries or reported concerns are with back strains, just, you know, aches in the shoulders and those areas that we're using repetitively. So just keep that in mind. You know, it's something that we don't think about a lot, but it's a focus that you should have as you're making it through your day, because injury certainly can be an issue. And there's a lot of really cool devices that they didn't have back in the day that help make the job easier. If you are doing work on the farm and it hurts, that's your body's way of telling you, like, stop, you know, try something different. Again, Amazon even has a lot of these ergonomic tools, which if I would have said, hey, you need to work more ergonomically to my grandparents, they would have said, what on earth are you talking about? But today's farmers, we can do things more efficiently and safer that are going to make it a lot easier for us. There's no reason to have aches and pains just because we are doing farming on the side. So one of the tools I think is cool is the one that you can use to carry hay bales. And I did not know about that when I first started. So I can tell you, I had lots of pains from moving to square bales around, which I had done as a kid too. You know, but there's lots of things that can make it easier. Here's some other examples. If you're gardening and you're bending down to plant and you've got, you know, maybe tables of your seedlings or whatever it is, you can get adjustable tables that will help with that. If you do fencing, I highly suggest getting one of those clip benders. It is a game changer. That is something that, you know, fencing is hard work. It is not something that I enjoy, but it's necessary. And those things, this little device is going to save you a lot of time. And then I've had some issues with carrying water buckets. If you guys have small animals, if that's something where you don't have big stock tanks with water supply, I would highly suggest getting a device that helps you carry those so you're not using your shoulders the whole time. Does anybody have any questions on the safety side? The reason why, again, this is a little more dear to my heart is because I have worked a lot in workman's comp. I've seen a lot of different injuries. I've worked through people who have gotten hurt on farms, and it's affected their work. And that's why I think it's important to talk about, is to be able to help each other, you know, focus on that and stay injury free, because your family needs that as well. Any questions on safety?
I don't see any right now, but you're so right. Like, when your body is your livelihood, it is so important to take care of that, because like, you know, one twisted ankle or something that slows you down for a day, like, not only can halt production, but it can just make you miserable. And
Absolutely.
you know, like, farmers are very good at pushing the limits and working really hard, and then you don't take time for your body to heal, and then it's just a persistent problem over time. So it's a great investment to, yeah, think about safety and just taking care of your body. Yeah, you're right. That's very important.
Very good. And one thing we want to talk about is just your mental health as well. There are times that if everything doesn't go well, let's say you experience something completely unexpected, a tornado takes out something that you've worked so hard for. If you've just gotten your barn together, you've got your animals, you've spent years working up to a certain extent, and it's all gone. That is something that's very hard for anyone to deal with. We've had deaths in the family while we're doing the farming, and it's just mentally taxing. My husband experienced a loss of his father, and that was very difficult for him, trying to work through that and then assist me on the farm. So I just want to say, since it is Mental Health Awareness Month, it's a great time to say, if you ever feel overwhelmed, make sure you talk to somebody that you trust. Don't allow those feelings to build up, because it's not healthy. Any kind of ongoing stress to a very top level is going to make you in fight or flight all the time. And it definitely wreaks havoc on your whole system. And it can make you a lot more prone to illnesses. So these are just some resources, which, you guys will have this presentation afterwards, but those are links to our local mental health resources just for counseling, a lot of different services that may be of interest. And it's, again, good just to know about, hopefully something you never have to use. But I think this is something that we need to talk about more as a community, is just, if you need help, find somebody that you can talk to, because too many times we just try to work through it, and it doesn't necessarily help us get better. So having resilience and being able to reset is important. And as you're thinking about, making changes to your farm or taking on more, it's really important to make sure that you keep things in check. If you always focus on the negative aspects or the things you're not getting done or the things you really want to accomplish, but gosh, you haven't done it yet, you're really only going to see the negative. So that really leads you to just feeling defeated, and it does affect your ability to be able to balance your responsibilities. So, the one thing I want to tell you is know that at some point you're going to fail. Nobody's perfect. Especially in farming, there are so many variables that you can't control. Again, the weather, animal getting sick, a lot of different things. Unfortunately, if some, coyote got on your property and got some of your animals, there are things that you can't do anything about. So you have to know that, you will move on. There's a lot of, again, it goes back to support. There's people that can help you through that. There's a farmer that is just a half a mile down our road, and she had her barn burned down. I don't know if you guys saw that on KY3, but she was literally just around the corner from us, and she lost 60 goats. That was her whole livelihood. She milked full time. She lost her horse, she lost her dogs, a couple of cats. I mean, it was really devastating. I was going to work that day and watched, as the fire department had just gotten there and put it out. But she's had the community just, outpour love to her. We also did some fundraising, and that's, it's really, for her, it was devastating. I can't imagine losing everything that you had worked so hard for, but she's starting over, and the coolest thing is that she had somebody donate a whole starter herd. She has like 12 little babies now, little baby goats. And she's going to move forward. It's still tough. It's still something where she posts that she missed her horse, and your animals become part of your family, especially goats, because they all have their personality. But she didn't let it stop her. It certainly could, because I don't know if I lost everything, if I would have the mental capacity just to be able to be like, I'll start over, but that's something to keep in mind, is you can do anything you set out to do. A lot of our mental focus is half the battle. And just remember that failure is temporary. If you have challenges, that's just a moment in time. Your success is really based on the ability to face those challenges and just move forward. And I'll, just kind of open it up to, if anybody has any stories where maybe things didn't go your way, maybe you were starting out and you didn't think you were going to be able to make it, and how you were able to kind of turn that around. I would love to hear from anyone that has kind of that success story, because I think there's a lot of people on the call that would benefit from that, hearing not just me, but other people that have kind of weathered that really tough startup.
Yeah, please do feel free to share. And while if anyone is thinking about it or typing it, I'll also share a story I heard from a local farmer who was starting off, and he had, saved enough money to get this big, beautiful, it was a high tunnel or also really great greenhouse. I don't quite remember, but it needed to be constructed. And he called upon his friends in the community. Everyone came out. It was this glorious day, and they put it all up. It was awesome. Everybody felt great about contributing. And then lo and behold, I think it was within a week or two, there was some crazy storm, and it caused irreparable damage to this brand new protective structure that, they already felt not guilty, but you do feel the impact that your community has when they step up and they're like, yeah, we'll help you. And they contributed. And he said he did definitely shed some tears, because he had to turn right around and let everybody know what happened and just apologize. And, I think he ended up asking for help again, and they got it. And it's been a few years, but he said that was a really, really big heartbreak, because you put in the effort and you get something done and it feels like something checked off your list, and then something unexpected happens and all that work, felt like it was for nothing. But, you can always recover as long as you don't give up. There's always recovery. And we do have a comment that said, I paid someone to till up a garden space around 50 by 100 feet. I was nowhere near prepared to manage that much area. It wasn't a huge financial loss, but it was an emotional one. The landscape fabric was a lifesaver. But yeah, so you invested the time and money to get someone out there to do it, and it's ready. And then it sounded like it just was not the best timing, So I feel that. I hear you loud and clear there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else have any stories that they'd like to share? I know I like hearing them as well, because, when I talked about starting out, we kind of just jumped in it. We have learned so much since then. And we've kind of reset like different ways that we're going to take our farm. We originally were going to do mini Nubians with our Nigerians, and decided to get away from that because the registration process was so difficult, because they're a fairly new registered breed, which again, they're mixed. They're a full-blooded Nubian with a full-blooded Nigerian Dwarf, both registered, and then they breed for the smaller mini Nubians, which are awesome because they basically take 2/3 less feed, but they have the same milk production primarily as a Nubian. But it just wasn't, we weren't able to sell them as well. It wasn't really part of our breeding plan. So we just kind of shifted and continued just to do Nigerian Dwarfs. We still have a few that are part of our farm, but we don't do the registered piece because it's so difficult. And so, we've changed up some of the things as we go along.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We don't have any other comments on it right now.
Okay. All right. So I really want to focus on one thing about just being able to ask for help and learning is building your network. There are so many online groups through Facebook and organizations that really offer a lot of knowledge. And if you're, no matter what kind of farm operation you're in, there is some sort of niche network that can help you. The community gardens, of course, offers lots of resources. And, Anna can speak to that and give you some contact information that you'll be able to have, because a lot of people think, well, the community gardens are just focused on gardening, but they also do a lot of farm support. Do you want to kind of cover that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, like I said in the beginning, we have got a network of 16 gardens. So we've got some new gardeners, some lifetime gardeners who are a part of that, all across the spectrum. And then we've got our farm incubator, where we train a lot of new farmers that are getting started and are really seeking those resources. And, I cannot understate how helpful it is sometimes for a beginning person to just have that resource and be able to talk to someone who knows what they are talking about and who has experience, and just have their specific questions answered. So on a grander scale, we do work with a lot of farmers at beginning stages. Some are senior farmers, and something that we offer that's directly related to my position. Patrick Byers, who is the horticulture field specialist for MU Extension, he and I, every once in a while, we go out and we will actually visit farms. And so for people who have the land and they are, wanting to farm, wanting to get started. And Joshua, I saw your comment about lacking a bit more of a plan and the organization. Like, you have land, but you don't know how, you don't know the ins and outs of growing every single crop you want to grow, or raising every single animal that you want to raise. Well, Patrick, and we have other people if you have more specifics, but we're happy to come out and visit your farm and take a look at the land and just talk to you about your goals and get a better idea of how we can support you and get started. So sometimes that is a business plan. Sometimes that is looking at your soil tests and letting you know what kind of amendments that you need before you should start planting. Depending on your specific situation, if they're, say that you want to raise sheep and goats or rabbits for textiles, well, that's an interesting idea. And we're going to support you by connecting you with other textile farmers and, just kind of building a network that way so that you can have people there to ask your questions before you invest your hard-earned money and your time on a plan that may not pay off. So that's a big thing that we do. And that's very specialized to the person, which I think is very helpful. And then besides that, we put on these workshops, we take suggestions for future workshops that people want to see. But, we have them on Zoom. We have a lot of in-person workshops, and hopefully as time moves on, we can offer a few more in-person workshops because those can be really valuable. But I'll put my contact information in the chat again, because that's just what we're here for. Like, no matter what stage you are in planning, whether very beginning and you just have an idea about what you want, or if you're a few years down the road and you're having trouble with one crop, or you're having trouble with marketing or the business planning, like, we know people. We've been around, we know a lot of great farmers, and we are more than happy to connect you with them.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. I wish I would have known about the community gardens ahead of time, before I started, because I certainly would have used their resources. I think it is just an outstanding offering that we have right in our community. And, right when I started, I did connect with those social media groups. There's a lot of, like, for goats, but there's a lot of animal groups, there's chicken groups, there's planning, where you can just go in and ask questions. Like, you can post, hey, this has come up, what do you think this is? What should I do? And you'd be surprised how many people will just jump in to help out and give you advice. And, sometimes there's odd things that come up and you're like, I don't really know what this is. I don't know how to handle it. Whether it be with, signs of illness, or if there's just, things going on with your farm that's a little unexpected. I can tell you there's probably somebody out there that's dealt with that same situation. And the community of farmers that we have, they're a great group of people. They love to help. I've never had anyone that's ever not been willing to give me advice. We used to be mentored by other farmers, and now we get to, that we've been doing it for a while and have some more knowledge, we're able to mentor ourselves. And so that's what it's all about. It's all about learning. It's all about sharing your knowledge and then building your community. That's going to strengthen all of our generations. So this is some cool stuff to share. My kids are really involved in our farm, which I didn't know if they would be because, it wasn't their life's work to bring home goats, but they do love them. And they have helped out with some of our community events. And one thing that I love is being able to share our farm with others. And it's just so great for kids that maybe they don't have opportunities to have even their own yard. Maybe they live in an apartment complex. We've had kids that have come out that have, some special needs, and just being outside and being able to have lots of different sensory opportunities with animals, especially goats. It's just been amazing. It's been something that we find joy in sharing that. And the silly picture on the side with my daughter is in the little skid steer. We had a lot of barn clean out and some land work that we had to do. And I was pretty nervous about my husband letting her have some experience, but how empowering is that for her to be able to say that she's learned how to do some work on the land. And that's just an amazing thing to see happen. One thing I didn't mention is, part of farming is there's a lot of equipment needed. When we started out, we didn't have that. We had the land and we don't have the funds to be able to spend, 50, 70,000 on a piece of equipment. That is a suggestion I have for you. Is there are people, believe it or not, that would come over and not just sometimes they'll let you borrow their equipment. Sometimes they'll come over and do some of the work for you for a small fee. Again, with that networking of our community, there's lots of people that will be willing to help with their equipment. We have rented a lot of ours. If we needed a tractor, if we needed like the skid steer to do some work once a year, it's more cost effective for us to rent versus going out and buying it and having a payment. So that's just something we've found a workaround. Now, eventually we will buy, our equipment, but we're just not at that point yet. Again, it's not a part of our, 3-year, 4-year plan, but it is in the future. So, again, for all of our community that's on here, farming has to go on. It's necessary in any way that you can, slowly grow. I mean, it doesn't even matter if you have plans to expand and you just do a little bit at a time, that's a win. If you are working and come home and your animals are doing well and you're taking care of them, that's a win. Your family learning work ethic and being able to see you making something successful or farming is entrepreneurship, and that's something that's good for any generation to see. I can't think of anything else that is probably harder to have so many of those variables we talked about to overcome. To really make it successful. And so that's congratulations to all of you for at least putting that effort out. If you haven't started yet, I can tell you, you can do it. You can find a way to do it, even if it's on a really small scale, because, once you start, that's the first step. You can always grow, you can always get resources. And one thing we didn't talk about a whole lot is there's still grants out there. If you are interested in funding, there may be something out there that can help you get started. And there are the USDA extensions or offices, that are in areas where they can also provide help. If you truly are wanting to do more of a business with either a product that you're developing from your farm, I know that the Small Business Association can help with some of those plans as well. So there's just a variety of resources that can help you accomplish your goals. And, I hope this call has given you some of those.
Yeah.
And then again, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you so much for reminding me. I did not mention the USDA at all, but it's very, very true. That's another way that we support farmers. We help people navigate those USDA resources. because they have a ton, you know, the USDA wants people to be fed. They want to help farmers grow food and livestock and everything in between. So I know they have a ton of low interest loans for starting your farm or getting operation expenses underway. There are a ton of different programs. You can apply to have a high tunnel or fencing. There are so many different things. So I feel terrible for not mentioning that sooner, but there really are a ton of programs. And again, we can help you navigate that if you have any more specific questions.
Yeah, very good. And I just wanted to show this infographic. We all know that the supply chain goes through so many levels, and it's nice to be able to cut a lot of that out, where we're just back to the basics of, you know, we're farming off our land, we're enjoying our own produce, we're enjoying our own, you know, food that's coming for our family that's so much healthier. You know, I know I keep saying that. You know, one of the things that I get asked a lot is, why did you name your farm Ozarks Hippie Goat Farm? And part of it is because, you know, getting to know goats and their personalities, I truly believe that they are most like hippies because they love everyone. They're always happy. They come out born in a good mood and bouncing around, and everything's the best day ever. And like I said, they just are just very loving animals. And so that was part of it. And just because we do want to kind of focus on getting back to the most natural sources of food and farming and, you know, providing for our family, because our food system has been unfortunately very highly processed, and there are a lot of chemicals added and sugar added and things that we should not be consuming. And by the time you get to the fact that it's produced and in a box, it's got so many preservatives, it's not even truly being processed by our body as food, and we're not processing the nutrition. One thing I didn't add in here is just even with chicken eggs that are grown free range, they have a lot more protein, a lot more vitamin content than the ones you buy in the store that are like commercially produced. And that's just a side note. You know, a lot of things that we are growing have a lot more vitamin content. So just, you know, again, give yourself grace. You are going to learn as you go along. Every year you're going to grow. You're going to know more than you did last time, and focus on the positive. You know, the things the challenges that that come up that we have to work through is a learning experience. And that's how you have to look at it. Learn from each other. That is the thing that saved us, is being able to have that community that gives you that support, that makes you feel like you can do it, you know. And these are just some examples of the things that we've gotten. You know, I never thought when I was younger, I never thought I'd have goats. I never thought that I would have processed a chicken myself. I never thought I would have used or milked goats and used their milk to make cheese and soap. But it is so empowering to do that. It's something that, again, my family's learning. You know, it's something that I think it builds them some survival skills as well. So I would like to just thank you guys for your time and open it up to any questions that you might have, any at all. They can be goat related, farm related, questions for Anna. We want to make sure that we can hit on anything that maybe you want to know more about.
All right, it looks like we have one question. Wondering if you've tried your hand at alpacas, or know anything about alpaca farming. Have you considered that?
So my husband and I have had that conversation because he likes them. And if I tell you why I don't want to, you're just going to laugh, because I am a little weirded out by animals with very, very long necks. And I know that that doesn't make any sense. It's my own personal hang up, but there is an awesome alpaca farm. It's a little bit of a drive, but if you ever want an outing, it's in Holden, Missouri, and it's called Green Meadows Alpaca Farm, and they do pack-up picnics. They've had weddings there, and it's just the most unique place to visit. They have, I think, over 40 alpacas, and they have turkeys that are pets. They have guineas. They have goats. And they share them, and they teach people how to utilize the wool and how to do different things with it, or the fiber, I should say. So if you're ever interested, look them up on Facebook. Again, if you ever want a road trip, I would highly suggest it. It's Green Meadows Alpaca Farm, and they've been featured in one of the Kansas City publications just for their family outings. They have a lot of schools that go out there, and I know there's some locally, but that's one that I personally visited that does a lot of education. And
I put the link in the chat to their website. It looks awesome. That's very
okay, great. But I do like them. It's just not like, I don't know. I think it's maybe the height thing, because they're, when you're standing next to them, they're looking right at you in your eyes.
They are.
They're super docile. One thing I learned, this is just interesting, is they are kind of like, I guess you would compare it to cats. They have a place that they basically go to the bathroom, and that's where they all go. And so like with goats, they go everywhere. Cows do the same thing. Well, they don't do that. They won't go in their bedding area. It's just this community bathroom out in the middle of, the field. It's just a thing with them.
I do also have a question. So you work full time, you have a family. I assume that your children are involved with extracurriculars. So if you had to give kind of a ratio of how you spend your time, how would you do that? Like, it sounds like you're putting in over 100%.
Yeah, it's really, I had to get to more of a schedule, and we over communicate as a family. So today, my daughter actually had unexpected districts in softball. Hopefully they won tonight, because then they have their championship tomorrow, so I can be there. There are times when I can't be at everything all the time. It's just not possible. But if I have, for example, if I have to work late, I'll communicate with my family, hey, can you feed? Or if we're going out to dinner, we kind of, get everything taken care of ahead of time. The one thing I'll tell you is animals are resilient. If they are off an hour on their, feeding times, you may hear about it, but they're going to be okay. That's something where you've got to just take a step back. It's going to be fine. You're not missing out on, they're not taking care of them, but sometimes you have to give and take a little bit. There's been times when I've been late home because, again, I had to work late, and maybe the family was tied up. My son's in college, so he's not home a lot. My daughter, again, with her being sports, they're not able to help. So between my husband and I, we kind of work that out, just to kind of fill in where the other person can't.
Very good.
Good question.
And then we do have a follow-up to the alpaca question. What about mini cows, especially the mini longhorns and stuff like that? You thought about
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Yes. If you
need nice short necks, short legs, short necks.
Yes, I can do those. I've looked into it. That's one thing I can tell you, looking at profitability and sustainability with, if you're just looking at like breeding and sales, many cows is the hottest thing. Like goats are great, and certainly they're a great addition to any hobby farm. But when you start getting into the mini cows, you're talking about a lot of money. Now, it takes a lot of investment, but some of those sell from $3,000 to $7,000. I mean, it's and I see that there's a growing want for that, because again, it doesn't take as much land. A lot of people use them as pets, but it's definitely a hot livestock to be considering. So yes, I have them on my Facebook. So there's lots of times that I've been like, maybe it's time to jump in,
One more question. So you said you do work to take vacations. Like, how do you decide what time of year and how long you can step away for? How do you do that? How do you make that work?
So we kind of schedule around kidding season, because that is difficult. Like I would have a hard time asking somebody to take on the responsibility of watching a bunch of, mother does that are getting ready to kid, because that can be stressful for anyone. So we normally vacation during the summer for a full week plus. And then take some like extended weekends. And again, I've got a couple of people lined up. They're younger, they're looking at studying agriculture, and they just love it. They absolutely enjoy coming out. But I found them through school. I asked our ag teacher, if that's something they can post, if we ever end up having another need, like let's say the girl that she's in school right now, if she moves on and she can't do it anymore, can I connect with another student that's wanting to study agriculture? And he said, absolutely. So that's kind of the niche that I would say try, because younger students are eager to learn. And for them, it's not a pain point. They want to come stay on a farm. They want to come help out. And I know a lot of farms in Stratford area where they have cattle, but they have a lot of farm workers through the summer and a lot of students that help out that love it. So just keep that in mind. I mean, it's doable. We just kind of go over the schedule. I write everything down of what's required. We kind of do a trial run of, hey, I'm going to be here, but I'm going to let you care for everyone. And we'll make sure I'm there to answer questions and help them so they build some confidence. Because it's not like something where you can just call somebody up and just say, okay, I'm leaving, take care of my farm. You got to walk through it with them. And I keep those notes. And then I also provide, just like you would with a babysitter, leave the notes, leave all of the emergency contacts. I have an emergency vet that they can call. I kind of cover all the bases just in case. And you know what? That gives us a lot less stress, because when we're on vacation, we know if something does come up, we've got somebody that can help. And then if something happens to the person caring for the farm, we also have somebody like a neighbor or a friend that in an absolute emergency would be able to help out. Because if we're states away and let's say she got in a car accident or something happened, you always have to have multiple ways to have backups. And you would be surprised what less stress you will have when you do that.
Absolutely. And I think this is a follow-up from the alpaca to the mini cow question, and you'll have to help me out. It's a little over my head. I think this is about the mini cows, maybe about the goats, but someone's asking if they boom and bust like the alpacas. I know it is still evolving. Do you know what that means?
I think so. Just to clarify your question, if you can add it in the chat, do you mean as far as that it's a hot commodity now and then eventually people won't really want to have them, or they'll kind of get out of it pretty quick? Is that what they mean? Like a fad?
I think so. Yeah, he's talking about price.
Okay, got it. There's possibly some fluctuations with price, but the one thing that I found when it comes to animals, I kind of equate it to, like, you think about registered dogs. There are some registered breeds of dogs or even cats that go for an outrageous amount of money. And it doesn't even matter if the economy tanks. It doesn't matter, what happens in the future. People still will spend money for animals. It is just something that, I've seen even with the goats, like when things, you would be surprised what people would pay even for an unregistered goat because it's part of their family. It's just, I don't think it's ever anything that's going to completely go away. Now, there may be times when it's more in demand, and that's where you've got to kind of watch it. But even with and I go through this every year, I end up with a ton of kids and I'm like, gosh, what if we don't find homes for all of them? What if, there's not enough people that are wanting to grow their hobby farms, and I've never had that issue yet where I didn't just completely sell out and then have people still asking, do you have goats? Do you have any available? So, yeah, I think price may fluctuate a little bit, but I just can't see it going away because, it's when you pull at people's heartstrings, sometimes the money doesn't always become an issue.
That makes total sense. And of course, like some things are going to be really in demand one season and others not, or, there might be some terrible illness or disease, hopefully not, that, has an effect on things as well. So gosh, that gets into pretty unpredictable waters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So one thing we wanted to tell you guys is that we are going to do a giveaway on our participants. and it's for a book for hobby farming, and it just kind of gives you some additional tips. And then also we're including a product of ours that goes with that. And so, you know, we'll be able to do that drawing, and then whoever the winner is, we'll be able to coordinate with you on pickup.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for offering that. I think that's awesome. I know we've had some attendees come for a part of this workshop and drop off, then others have joined late.
Okay.
So I think I think I will have to look at the attendee list after the workshop. It's not
Okay,
giving me
that's
a
no
list of
problem.
everyone right now, but yeah, we'll have a drawing, and then I'll just send an email to the winner and we will coordinate. It'll be just a very random drawing to see who the winner is. But that's super, super generous of you. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate everybody hopping on, and you can find us on Facebook. It's Ozarks Hippie Goat Farm on Facebook and Instagram. And like I said, I'll go ahead and put my information in the chat as well. So if you ever have any questions, if you'd like to know more, you know, if it's specific to goat farming, or if you just have, you know, some general questions on how to do balance, I would be more than happy to help you out.
Well, thank you. That's awesome. And actually, I am popping your links into the chat right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so that should be good.
And I'll put my phone number as well.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, and thank you for being so available to folks. That's awesome. Because yeah, like you said, building a network, and the Ozarks, it's a small place, but it's a big place too. And we actually, Missouri has we have the second highest amount of farms of any other state, second to Texas, believe it or not. So it's definitely a big part of our agricultural heritage, and it's the way that a lot of people make a living, which is awesome because we want more people to have access to healthy, locally grown food and products like what you make. So I just think that's terrific. So thanks for everyone listening who is also wanting to grow more, because the demand is there. There is space right here, right now, and you know, the world is wide open for you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I hope everyone has a great evening, and definitely wish you the best of success in your farming endeavors.
All right. Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.